So I'm going to explain the Epino to you, and the Epino stands for episiotomy no. So that was the attitude of the obstetrician, the German obstetrician who developed the Epino. He didn't like cutting episiotomies, he didn't like having the stitch up afterwards, and he said there's got to be a better way. And so what he did was develop this based on what African women do. So they prepare the base of the vagina in readiness for giving birth. So they pre-stretch the area to allow for the baby's head to come through without any trauma. So no tearing, not needing to be cut, etc. So what he did was he said there's got to be a better way. Now we've taught perineal massage for a long time. That's been sort of in Egyptian times right across Europe. All mothers have taught their daughters about perineal massage, and aunties have taught them. Young women, and it's very, very important to know, yep, we need to prepare the perineum. Western society, women often don't manage to do it very well, so they might pop their thumbs into the base of the vagina and stretch it up, but if it's a bit unpleasant, then they'll back away from it going, oh, I don't think I want to do it. Or instead they'll get their partner to lay down a towel, oil up hands and begin to massage the perineum. And of course what happens is partner gets sidetracked and says, are you sure you want me to stay south or do you want me to go north? And so partner might instigate other fun instead of just sticking with perineal massage. So what we find with the Epino is that it's measurable, it's very obvious that we are on track and that we are actually achieving the goal that we're setting out to achieve. So the idea is that this blue section is popped inside the vagina. The woman controls that for herself. And what's actually in there is a thing that's a bit like a tampon. So it's a little bit of stiff plastic. And that helps to guide this into the vagina. So once it's in there, then closing off the valve and then puffing it up. So we puff this up to around about 5 centimetres. That's about the size that we need it to be. But you don't worry about measuring it. What you do is you wait. Once you've popped it in and you've puffed it up a little bit, then you go by feel. How does that feel? And it should feel like a firm fullness inside the vaginal canal. You can see it's still pretty soft, and the idea is that the woman's popped it in, she's holding onto it, or partner could hold onto it, and then gradually, slowly puffing this up. Now we start this at 34 weeks, and then finally, so we do just pop it in, 10 minutes, hold it in place for 10 minutes, and then slowly, slowly, gradually let that come out. Deflate it, pop it back in again, so it's all deflated, and then puff it back up. If we can do a couple of extra puffs, great. If not, that's okay. Just hold on to that inside for 10 minutes until we relax. We can use our breathing, and then just slowly, day by day, pre-stretching the vaginal area, the birth canal, and the base of the vaginal area, which is called the perineum. So letting that slide out slowly each day. You can just give it a quick rinse with hot soapy water. Don't use anything like Domestos on there, that'll rip it to pieces and ruin it. So treat it very gently. I'm extremely careful with these pointy nails as I'm handling it, because that is actually quite a delicate material that it's made out of. Eventually, from 34 weeks right through to 40 weeks, we will get this up to about 10 centimetres. Why 10? Because that's the average size of a baby's head. And then once we've actually got this up to about 10, and there is a measuring gauge in the instructions. Where is it? So we just hold it up against the measuring gauge, and that tells us, yep, there it is. So we hold it up against that, and that shows us, yep, we got that to 10 centimetres, and that's all we need to achieve. And then once that is there inside, then slowly, 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 gradually letting that come out. We can use lube on that as well, and that will make it a little bit more slippery and a little bit more easy for that to come out. For some women, they find that their pelvic floor muscles are very, very strong, and it just automatically keeps getting pushed out. So it could be a partner job to hold on to that, to keep it in place for the woman, just to help out. Okay, now once this comes out, and we've gotten it to 10 centimetres, the woman's confidence skyrockets. She's like, my God, I can do this, because look at that, I've done it. I've achieved this already. the one big thing I was scared about with labour was how the hell am I going to get that head out? How will I birth my baby? And there's a whole bunch of fears that women have, but this helps to reduce those fears. So emotionally, psychologically, she's much more ready to give birth, but also physically, she's slowly, gently trained for childbirth by gradually stretching up that tissue in the vaginal area. That's much better than a sudden extreme stretch, which would be typical of most women when they give birth. And certainly this would help reduce the risk of forceps, reduce the risk of needing a vacuum delivery, definitely reduces the risk of needing an episiotomy, and it also reduces the risk of having a tear, so any stitches whatsoever. So it makes a very significant difference. It's been in Australia since the year 2000, and it is TGA approved, and loads of obstetricians and midwives very much endorse it, but they're not allowed to say so publicly. So if a midwife in a public hospital was to say, oh yeah, get an Epi-No, it's a good idea, they're not allowed to promote products or promote services, etc. So that's why it's a little bit of a secret. If you jump on the internet and you ask other mothers in forums, how did you go with birthing your baby? What sort of things did you use to help yourselves? Then experienced mums might say, oh yeah, I used an Epi-No. There's loads of reviews on the internet about the Epi-No as well. And you'll find some of them where you can tell that somebody has used it properly by the way that they describe things in their review, but you can also tell when they haven't used it properly. Oh yeah, I used an Epi-No, not really very much, only did it a couple of times, and yeah, I ended up tearing. And it's like, okay, well that's because she either didn't know how to use it properly or just didn't follow the instructions. So the people who should not be using the Epi-No are those with active herpes or with extreme thrush, or if they're in some sort of a situation where the obstetrician says, no, for your circumstances, don't use the Epi-No, which is pretty rare. Most obstetricians are like, yep, good idea to use it. So the Epi-No is about $200. I'm not on any commission, any kickback. There's no financial benefit to me. The reason that I show this in all my classes is because back in the year 2000, when I was going to births, I saw some women who had used it. Instead of them actively pushing for first baby for flat out for 2 hours, they were pushing for only about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, 30 minutes. The baby came out in much better condition. It wasn't kind of wiped out and tired. The mother was definitely in better condition after the birth. Not only did she not tear, but she's also not exhausted because it was only about a 30-minute second stage. But also she's much more emotionally satisfied. The fact that she's not needed any stitches, she's in much better condition afterwards. So it does take some effort from 34 weeks, through to 40 weeks, using it twice a day just for 10 minutes each time. It does require a little bit of focus, a little bit of attention, and for anybody who's past 34 weeks, then playing catch up and doing it maybe a couple of extra times. If our body's responding extremely well to it, well fine, we only need to do it once a day. But basically the goal is to get that up to 10 centimetres so that emotionally and physically we're much more ready to give birth. Now the other thing that we do with this, so it's a two-use product, a dual-use product, is check the tone and the strength of the pelvic floor. So you can see that this is a gauge here, and we don't need to use this for the childbirth training, but otherwise hand is vagina, and popping that into the vagina, giving it a squeeze, tells us how strong our pelvic floor muscles are. We can use this as early as we like in the pregnancy, as much as we want, and about 6 to 12 weeks after the birth, we can test the strength of the pelvic floor muscles and continue during the first couple of years before we have our next baby, testing the strength of our pelvic floor. So a lot of women love that idea about the Epino as well. It's a dual-use product. So we don't use this gauge during the pregnancy for expanding up the vagina. Sometimes people say to me, Jules, if I get this to 10 centimetres in readiness for birth, does that leave me with a great big baggy, floppy, stretched up vagina? No, it doesn't. So what it does do is gently stretches that tissue so that it's very elastic. It's as if we're respecting the elasticity of the tissue. If we didn't do any Epino preparation or perineal massage or anything, then what we do have is sudden extreme stretch when the baby's head's coming through, and of course that's more likely to lead on to trauma to the tissue. Does all that make sense? Okay, so there you have it. That's all about the Epino, and I'll grab a brochure for you on it.